Hello, and welcome back to the Talk Nats podcast. I am your host, Kevin Nibley, and we are sponsored by Old DC Apparel. Head on over to shopolddc.com. You can get the latest and greatest in original DC fan gear. They have some new baseball stuff up for the spring, as well as a couple of Beer Snake shirts, if that's something you're into. Use the code TalkNatsPod at checkout for 10% off your order. As always, you can find us on YouTube at TalkNats Podcast. That's also our handle on X, and you can find the audio-only version of this show on any major podcast platform. All right, so this is going to be an exciting episode. We are joined by one of the best high school baseball coaches in all of the United States, who also happens to be a father of one of the top Nats prospects, Devin Fitz-Gerald, who came back in Mackenzie Gore trade. I'm talking, of course, about Coach Todd Fitz-Gerald, legendary high school baseball coach. We went on for a bit, so we're going to break this into two parts. We'll do part one today and part two next Friday. But before we bring Todd on, it's time for the week in review. All right, we tried this last week. We're doing it again. It's the week in review. We are going to go through the W's and the WTFs of this past week in Nats baseball. All right, let's get it started. W's, not a lot of them. We went 1-5 last week, but I will count James Wood as a W. James is getting his groove back. He's found that opposite field stroke, had a couple homers, had some really hard singles. I think one of the hardest hit balls all year, about 116 miles an hour the other day. He looks like he's locked in. Last year he got potentially ruined by the home run derby, ruined trying to pull the ball. And, I think when he focuses on going the other way, that's when he's his most effective. He's starting to look a bit like first half 2025 James Wood, and I'm going to count that as a W. Next W, Brady House. We brought him up last week, and he is still performing. Some great defensive plays. Key home run in that comeback win against the Cardinals. He didn't look all that great in 2025, but so far in 2026, this looks like a cornerstone of the franchise. This looks like potentially an Austin Riley type, a guy you can just pencil in at third base for the next 6 years. And that's something the Nats have needed badly. He's really the first plus third baseman we've had since Anthony Rendon. All things considered, I think you have to be really happy with the development of Brady House and excited for the future with him. All right, last W, I'm going to say no more Masson. We have a drone. We have a wire cam. We have some better angles, some better production value, and that's a good thing. Masson always stood out to me. I think they had a pregame show once where they were just throwing up some stools in a Royal Farms gas station by the fried chicken line. I mean, it was that level of production. So I will say the new Nationals TV, it's a good thing. It's getting better. And I think for Nats fans, we are ready for that. So those were the W's from this past week. Now, unfortunately, for the WTFs. First one's easy. The bullpen obviously blew some big leads, blew a 5-1 lead, I believe, in Philly, a 6-1 to the Dodgers, and then a 5-2 to the Cardinals. I mean, you flip those results. The Nets are not 4-8, they're 7-5, and looking pretty good, and we're all excited. So yeah, the bullpen's been a big letdown. Really not many guys you can count on. Peter's been the best, Lord's been serviceable, but past that, I mean, really not a lot to get excited about. I think this, unfortunately, probably is going to be an issue all year. They're going to have to start a churn. They're going to have to start bringing guys up from Rochester. They're going to have to scour the waiver wire. They're going to have to just kind of do what they did in 2019 and just start a little bit of a carousel until we can find 4 or 5 guys that won't blow up when you throw them in with a 4-run lead in the 8th inning. So unfortunately, the bullpen, big WTF that I think we're going to be dealing with all season. Next WTF, Miles Michaelis. God bless him, but it looks like he may be done. Awful start, obviously, in Chicago. Another just completely awful start for the home opener against Los Angeles. It looked like batting practice out there against that loaded Dodgers team. And not the best start the other day in the series finale against the Cardinals. Some pitchers you can't let a lineup see him 3 times. I mean, Michaelis, at this point, I'm not sure a lineup can even see him 2 times without shelling him. So that's an issue. I think you're going to probably have to cut bait on him before too long. I know he was signed to be an innings eater, but, innings eating is not very valuable if you're giving up 2 runs every inning you pitch, right? So that's an issue. Miles Michaelis, WTF this week. And the last one, our last WTF, I'm going to just give to Kevin Franson and Dan Coco, talking about the drone endlessly while the Dodgers were shelling us. They kept going back to the drone. They love the drone. And we get it, guys. You got a drone, okay? You don't need to address the drone every half inning and remind us that there's a drone. We've seen the drone, and just so they're aware, I mean, drones have existed in broadcasting for going on a decade plus now. I mean, they're not exactly new. I know they're new to us and our broadcast, but I think our viewers at home have seen drones before. So when you bring it back the next time, take it down a notch. You don't need to call it out every minute of the broadcast. So that was our week in review, the W's and the WTFs of the last week of Nats baseball. And now, without any further ado, we're going to bring in one of the finest high school coaches in all of America, the great Todd Fitz-Gerald. So right now, we are joined by Todd Fitz-Gerald, one of the best high school baseball coaches in the country, and also the father of Nats prospect Evan Fitz-Gerald. Coach, thanks for taking the time with us today.
No, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, you built your program, Stoneman Douglas, into a national powerhouse. Talk about that process. What's your coaching philosophy, and what are the foundations you emphasize in your program?
Well, I think number one, this is my 15th year there. It took 3 or 4 years. I had to change the culture. Number one, when I first got in there, and then try and get everybody to understand the value of being a high school athlete. Number one, you're a student first, and then an athlete at the end of the day. So being able to clean some things up inside the building academically with some kids and getting them on the right track. And that just translates over to the baseball field. I feel if you can get those guys to do what they need to do in the classroom, you can surely trust them on the field. So that was one of the big things. And then it's just our system that we have. Every coach that coaches has a system, right? And our system works for us. And I've got really good stability in my coaching staff, and they do a really good job as far as executing what we want to execute every day on a daily basis in practice. So I think that's been really strong. I think that's kind of the foundation. And then we coach both levels. Our entire coaching staff coaches the JV and the varsity. So the kids that are in 9th and 10th grade are getting the same message, for 4 years. So it's not, hearing it from somebody else and then having to reteach it when they get to varsity. So I think those 3 principles are things that has made our program what it is. And obviously the standard, how we go about our business, how we prepare, how we practice, how we represent the program on and off the field, the school, the community, and things of that nature. So all those things tie in, and we've been very blessed.
Yeah, no, I see that you've won 5 straight state titles, which is amazing. Did you find it harder to get to the top, or is it harder to stay on top once you're there?
Man, that's a great question. Obviously, I think it's harder to get to the top, but it's a lot harder to stay on top, if you know what I mean. Because here's just to give you an example. Over that 5-year run, I think we've only lost like 11 games, right? We won like 154. Well, we're getting everybody's number one night in and night out because they want to knock us off, right?
Yeah.
Well, they're not getting Gio Rojas every night. You know what I mean? They're not getting Jesus Luzardo every night, when he was
Hmm.
there. They're not getting our number one every night. So to be able to do what we've done and sustain what we've done, obviously we've had really good players. Um, but we've just had a really great culture and the kids really buying into what we teach and it's paid off.
Well, yeah, you mentioned Jesus Luzardo. You've coached a few major league players, Eric Hosmer, Roman Anthony, I believe.
Yeah.
What was that like? Did you know like right away when you had them, like these guys are stars and they might become major league stars, or was that something that kind of developed in them, during your time with them?
Well, I think early on in my coaching career, I started as a head coach in 2002. So I had Hosmer in that group in 2008. We had over 400 million on the field in 2008. Not only did I have Hosmer, I had Nick Castellanos, who
Oh,
was on
wow.
that
Okay.
team.
Yeah.
I had Adrian Nieto, who had a cup of coffee with the White Sox, and then Devin Marrero, who
Hmm.
played for the Red Sox for some time. So I had four big leaguers on that team. Um, so as a young coach, you you kind of know and you can see if it's there or not, just the way they go about their business, the way they carry themselves, and the talent that they have, and the ability to make things happen in game and to be able to change a game with one swing or with one pitch or just this those guys are special and that's why they're in the big leagues. It's nothing I did. I just tried to keep their head on straight and give them some life lessons and teach them how to be men.
Cool. Yeah. Do you have a certain philosophy on handling those star guys versus the rest of the roster? How do you kind of
Treat
work
everybody the
that out?
same.
Okay.
Treat
Yeah.
everybody the same. If I can't get on Eric Hosmer, if I can't get on Roman Anthony or Kobe Mayo,
Hmm.
then it doesn't make me worth my salt as a coach if I'm always getting on the guy that's at the bottom of the list. That guy's easy to get on, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you
Absolutely.
got to be able to get on your top guys so the rest of the team understands like he's not playing around. Like if he's going to sit Roman Anthony, he's going to sit everybody. So I think you got to be really consistent in how you discipline, and when you do discipline, you make sure it's level across the board.
Now, I imagine you're very busy with your team and all of that, but I mean, do you still follow some of these guys like Roman, or Jesus Luzardo that are in the big leagues? Do you track their starts? Are you too busy
I
with
no,
your program?
I talk to him on a regular basis. I just talked to Roman yesterday. Kobe, I talked to about 2 weeks ago.
Hmm.
Jesus was just at our field, at the beginning of the year. He usually comes out. All those guys usually come out and get their work in before spring training. So, yeah, I always try to build those relationships, keep those relationships, let those guys know that we're always thinking about them, and our kids too. All our kids
Hmm.
follow them, and those guys are really good, Kev. Man, like they
Yeah.
they reply back to our kids, they respond to our kids. Like it's pretty cool what those guys have done and how they continue to follow our program. It means a lot to me as a coach.
Cool. Yeah. Now, in addition to some of these major league stars, you've also coached your own sons. One of
Hmm.
whom is a Nats prospect that came back in a Mackenzie Gore trade. What's it like to coach your own sons? Is that how do you? I know you say treat everyone the same, but how is that? That's got to be a little complicated if you then go after practice, you're driving home and eating dinner together and all that. How does that work?
Well, they're two totally different kids, two totally
Hmm.
different personalities. Um, Hunter is a really good hitter and was a really bad practice player, but he was a really good game player. Devin has been really good practice game everything, right? So
Hmm.
I didn't really have to lean on Devin the way I leaned on Hunter. But I think it's made Hunter who he is, and I think Devin is who he is because as a younger kid in the neighborhood, Devin was always 4 or 5 years younger than everybody, but always playing
Hmm.
with the older guys. So he had to get it quicker. You
Hmm.
understand? So he was
Yeah.
brought up a lot quicker and he's been around it a lot longer. And he's seen guys that have got to the top and guys that kind of gave it away. And he's learned what to do and what not to do and how to act and how not to act. So, Devin's definitely a little bit more polished at this age than Hunter was, but
Mm,
yeah, they're two very, very talented kids, obviously living out a kid's dream, right? Playing professional baseball. So,
yeah. Now you mentioned, I guess, the difference between being good in practice and good in the game. I guess, for more casual fans listening, what does that mean?
well, I mean, Devin would probably he would rather probably take 150 ground balls than hit as
Mhm.
much. Hunter would rather take 150 swings and less ground balls.
Sure.
I'm a big pitching and defense guy.
Mhm.
I think that's what wins championships. Offense wins games, but if you're going to win the dance, you got to be able to pitch and play defense. And
Mhm.
so no, guys take pride in it, man. And the good thing about our program is we're too deep at every position. So there's constant competition every day
Mhm.
at practice. And not only that, we bring up some of the younger guys that we think are going to be staples, that we're going to build around for the future. And those guys get their feet wet on varsity. They don't play a whole lot, but they get to go to the games. They get to, dress, IO and all that and get up, just see what the game's like. Cause it's a lot faster on the varsity level than it is the junior varsity level. So
Yeah.
we'll try and get about 4 or 5 kids and try and breed them, and then we build around that.
Now, speaking of Devin, he was, he came back in the Mackenzie Gore deal this offseason.
Hmm.
He was recently promoted to high A and
Hmm.
got 3 hits in his first game in Wilmington. Were you happy with his promotion to high A? And what do you see his trajectory in terms of, his path, hopefully to the major leagues?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good for him. I think one thing is he's always proven he can hit and he's gonna hit. And that's never going to be a problem with me thinking it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think he projects as a second baseman, but he's just a really good player who's not sexy. He doesn't have all the flash and flare,
Mhm.
but he finds a way. He's got sneaky power. He's got a really good IQ. He plays the game the right way. He's a great teammate. And I think everybody that you talk to about him will tell you that he knows what he wants and he knows what it's going to take to get there, and he's going to do whatever it takes to get there. And if he does, that'd be the best day of our lives. And if he falls short of that, then it's still the best day because he's got to do something that he's wanted to do since he was a kid. So
Hmm. That's great.
I
Yeah.
believe in him. Yeah, the good thing is you probably don't even know this, but the manager for Wilmington, Ted Tom,
Mhm.
he was the first one that recruited Devin in high school when he was at UCF. So
Oh,
he recruited Devin when he was like in the ninth grade, going into his 10th grade year. So Ted finally gets to coach him. So I think that's pretty cool story.
yeah, absolutely. Now, as a coach, do you watch him play? Do you watch his high A games, or do you give him feedback, or do you leave that to Ted or to the coaches that he
No,
has?
yeah, it's funny you asked that. I just got right before we got on this call. I just watched Hunter. He was playing. They played earlier today, and he got
Yeah.
a he was 0 for 3, but then got a big double in the ninth with one out, down 2-1. They end up losing 2-1. But yeah, I watch him, and then tonight I'll watch Devin, and I'll send them notes. What I see on
Hmm.
from the TV, and try and be as positive as I can. Listen, they know. They don't need to hear me break it down for them. I just try and stay positive, keep swinging. Last night, I don't know if you saw the game, 24 degrees. Devin texted me because it was coldest he's ever been in his life. It was like holding a brick in his hand. So I'm saying, hey man, that's part of it. It's a learning experience. It's a grind, and but he made a good double play there at the end of the game to hold the win 8-6. So, you're not going to get hits every night, and that's okay. But you can't take your at bats to the field, and you can't take your field to your at bats. So
Hmm.
the game is the game. You just go play the game and play the game the best of your ability, and don't take it. I always tell my kids, don't take a play off, don't take a pitch off, don't take an at bat off. Those are yours, and
Hmm.
be in the game. So, and that's what I've always tried to preach to them.
All All right, so that was our episode. Many thanks to Coach Fitz-Gerald. That was some really great insight, how he practices, how he treats his players, some really good stuff. And we have way more good stuff with him. We're going to share the second half of his interview next week. As always, thanks for listening. Please visit talknats.com. shopoldbc.com. They keep this program coming to you every week. Hopefully the Nats get on the road, win a few games, give us a little bit of a better week than we just had. And until next Friday, go Nats.